The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn blurred past the taxi window as I clutched my duffel bag, the weight of it nothing compared to the ache in my chest. Jordan's apartment key burned a hole in my pocket, a relic I couldn't bring myself to toss. Even as the cab pulled away from the curb where he stood, unmoving, his silhouette sharp against the sodium glow of the street lamp. In that frozen instant, his casual wave felt like a lie we'd both been telling ourselves for months. But it was the unsaid words hanging between us, the ones about love that had twisted into resentment, that propelled me forward into the night. I ended up crashing on Sam's couch that first week, the kind of temporary mercy that stretches into something more permanent when you're too broke and broken to plan ahead. Sam was my oldest friend, the one who dragged me to my first Pride parade back in college. Her rainbow flag draped over both our shoulders like a promise we didn't know we'd have to keep. She lived in a third-floor walk-up in Williamsburg, walls plastered with posters of riot girl bands and faded photos from Dyke March, the air thick with the scent of patchouli and takeout Thai. "You look like hell, Alex," she said that first night, tossing me a blanket without preamble as she curled up in her armchair, legs tucked under her like a cat ready to pounce on truths. Her eyes, sharp and knowing under that asymmetrical bob, scanned me as if she could see the fractures I'd tried to hide. I laughed it off, the sound brittle in the dim lamplight. "Thanks, Captain Obvious. Moving out drama, you know how it goes." But Sam didn't laugh. She never did when it came to this. Us, the queer kids navigating a world that still felt like it was built for straight lines. She'd come out in high school, back when her Baptist family in rural Ohio quoted Leviticus like it was gospel truth, and the scars from that still showed in the way she armored herself with sarcasm and steel-toed boots. Me? I'd waited until sophomore year at NYU, kissing a boy in the back of a lecture hall and realizing the panic in my gut wasn't fear of him, but of finally naming it. Jordan had been my anchor since then, or so I'd thought. Tall, with that easy grin and hands that knew exactly how to steady me during family holidays where my dad's sidelong glances said more than words ever could. That night, as the city hummed outside, Sam brewed us chamomile tea, and we talked until the sky lightened to gray. Not about Jordan, not yet. About the little things, the job I'd just quit at the graphic design firm because my boss kept joking about my lifestyle choices bleeding into client pitches, the way my mom called last week pretending not to hear the edge in my voice when I mentioned a friend instead of a partner. Sam listened, her fingers drumming a rhythm on her mug, and when I finally trailed off, she leaned forward. "You're not alone in this, Alex. But you can't keep running from the mess. Jordan's not the villain here, and neither are you." I wanted to argue, to spill how his silences had built walls thicker than the ones my family erected, but exhaustion won. I crashed hard, dreaming of keys turning in locks I couldn't open. By morning, the apartment smelled of coffee and resolve. Sam was already at her shift bartending at the Rusty Nail, a dive that catered to the leather crowd on weekends and poetry slams midweek, leaving a note on the fridge. "Rent split 50/50ths if you stay. No pity parties." I smiled despite myself, unfolding my laptop on her wobbly kitchen table to scour Craigslist for sublets. That's when the first message came through, a ping from an app we'd sworn off after our last fight. "Jordan, missed the rain on the fire escape this morning. Thought of you dodging puddles like always." No emojis. No exclamation points, just words that landed like raindrops on parched earth, casual enough to dismiss, intimate enough to sting. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the delete button. We'd broken up 3 months ago, officially, after a screaming match over his reluctance to go public at his office holiday party. "It's not about you," he'd said, voice low and strained, "but it was always about us. About the invisible line we towed between acceptance and assimilation." I moved out that night, packing boxes while he slept on the couch, pretending the rift was just a crack, not a chasm. "Now this." I typed back nothing, letting the silence stretch like the distance between Brooklyn and wherever he'd holed up in Manhattan. The days blurred into a rhythm of job hunts and late-night confessions over Sam's bootleg wine. She introduced me to Taylor one evening, a trans woman with a laugh like wind chimes and a portfolio of tattoos that told stories of her own transitions. Medical, social, the kind that reshaped worlds. Taylor worked as a barista by day and stand-up comedian by night, Her set's a razor-sharp dissection of gender norms that left audiences howling and uncomfortable in equal measure. We met at a queer open mic in Bushwick, the room packed with bodies of all shapes, flags draped over shoulders like badges of survival. Taylor spotted Sam first, pulling her into a hug that lingered just a beat too long, and I caught the spark, the unspoken flirtation that made Sam's cheeks flush under the stage lights. Alex, right? The roommate with the tragic breakup backstory, Taylor teased as we settled at a sticky table, her voice warm with mischief. She had this way of disarming you, eyes crinkling at the corners, voice pitched low like she was sharing state secrets. I nodded, launching into the edited version, the move out, the indifference, the lingering what-ifs. Taylor listened, nursing a gin and tonic, then leaned in. Sounds like classic avoidance. I've got a dead-name ex who did the same. Ghosted in person, haunted in texts. It's fear, honey, not indifference. Sam shot her a look, half warning, half intrigued, and I wondered if this was how friendships ignited in our world, sparks from shared wounds. As the night wore on, the mic passed to a poet who recited verses about chosen family, words that hit too close. We build homes from fragments, love from the rubble of who we were. I slipped out for air, the alley cool against my skin, and pulled out my phone. Another message from Jordan. Saw that mural on Bedford you loved. The one with the two guys dancing in the stars. Still there. My heart clenched. The mural was our spot, a graffiti heart we'd stumbled on during a walk home from a film festival, where he'd kissed me under the streetlight and whispered, "This is us. Eternal, even if it's spray paint." I typed, deleted, typed again, yeah? Weather holding up? Sent. The reply came fast, stormy. You? It was innocuous, a toe in the water, but it cracked something open. Back inside, Taylor was on stage, her routine a whirlwind of punchlines about dating apps and dysphoria, the crowd roaring. Sam sidled up, her hand brushing mine. You okay? I nodded, but the lie tasted bitter. That night, as we piled into an Uber, Taylor's head on Sam's shoulder, I felt the pull of possibility, not just with Jordan, but in this tangled web of us, the queer constellation holding each other up. Weeks turned into a fragile routine. I landed a freelance gig illustrating for an indie zine focused on LGBTQ+ voices. The pay shit, but the freedom intoxicating. Mornings were for sketches, afternoons for Sam's endless stories of bar drama, drunk proposals, brawls over pronouns, the quiet nights when she'd close up alone and question if the fight was worth it. Taylor became a fixture, her comedy gigs pulling us into late hours at after-parties where bodies moved fluidly, identities blurring in the strobe. One night, after a set where Taylor killed with a bit on passing privilege that left me gut-laughed and teary, we ended up at a rooftop in Greenpoint, fairy lights strung like stars, the skyline a jagged promise. Jordan's messages kept coming, a nightly ritual I both dreaded and craved. Dreamt we were back on that road trip to the Cape. You driving, me navigating wrong on purpose. Or, your laugh in my head today during a meeting. Derailed the whole pitch. They were fragments, echoes of the man who'd once mapped my fears with gentle questions, but now filtered through distance. I replied sparingly, sounds chaotic. Missed the open road. Each exchange a thread pulling taut. Sam noticed, of course. You're torturing yourself, she said one afternoon, as we chopped vegetables for stir-fry, her knife rhythmic against the board. Talk to him. Or block him. But this half-life? It's poison. I knew she was right, but the word stuck. My family added fuel. A call from my sister in Philly, her voice bright but probing. Mom says you sound distant. Everything okay with, you know, your friend? The pause said it all. The unspoken judgment from our conservative suburb roots, where Dad's golf buddies still whispered about that phase. I'd come out to them over Thanksgiving turkey 2 years back, Jordan's hand under the table a lifeline. But the acceptance was tentative, laced with prayers and love the sinner platitudes. Now, single and adrift, the questions felt like spotlights on my unraveling. Taylor, ever the catalyst, pushed harder. During a group hike in Prospect Park, Sam's idea for fresh air therapy. She cornered me by the lake, leaves crunching underfoot. Spill it, Alex. Jordan's not the only one scared here. What's the real block? Her empathy was fierce, born from years of gatekeeping her own truths, and under the dappled sun, it spilled out. The fear that loving him meant losing myself to compromises, the prejudice we'd internalized from a world that saw our love as political before personal. She nodded, fierce. Then fight for the version that fits. Or let it go clean. Sam watched from afar, her gaze lingering on Taylor with a softness that mirrored my own confusion. That evening, as the sun dipped low, my phone buzzed with a message that shifted everything. I lied that night you left. Wasn't unaffected. Haven't been since the day we met. Can we talk? My breath caught, the park's laughter fading to a hum. I looked up to find Sam and Taylor entwined on a bench, heads together in quiet conversation, and for the first time, the ache felt shared, not solitary. I typed back, yeah, tomorrow? The coffee shop on Atlantic Avenue was neutral ground, a place we'd avoided since the breakup because every corner held a memory. Our first date over lattes, the argument that started it all. Jordan arrived early, as always, nursing a black coffee, his dark hair longer now, curling at the nape in a way that tugged at old habits. He looked up as I approached, eyes shadowed but clear, no mask this time. Alex, he said, voice rough like he'd rehearsed it. We ordered, mine with almond milk, his the same, a reflex, and sat by the window, rain pattering against the glass like hesitant applause. He started slow, words measured. Those messages. I couldn't stop. Every night, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying us. The way you'd hum off-key in the shower, or how you'd defend me to your dad, even when he grilled you. I nodded, throat tight, remembering the holiday dinners where Jordan's presence was the elephant, his hand a secret anchor. But then the flood, his confession about the office party, how his boss, a silver-haired exec with a rainbow pin that felt performative, had cornered him post-coming-out announcement. He said I was brave, but the next day, whispers started. Projects pulled. I panicked, Alex. Thought if I hit us, it'd protect you too. The misunderstanding landed heavy, a prejudice we'd both absorbed, turning love into liability. I countered with my side. The freelance isolation, Sam's warnings, the zine gig that forced me to draw my truths raw. I felt erased, I admitted, voice cracking. Like our love was something to manage, not celebrate. He reached across, fingers brushing mine, and the contact sparked, not fire but warmth, the kind that thaws. We talked for hours, the rain easing to mist, unspooling the threads. His internalized shame from a Catholic upbringing, my fear of rejection echoing my family's tentative grace. By the time we parted, tentative plans for dinner hung between us, a bridge rebuilt plank by plank. Back at Sam's, the apartment buzzed with energy. Taylor was over, strumming a guitar she'd borrowed from the bar, Sam harmonizing in that husky alto that turned heads. They paused as I entered, eyes expectant. Well, Sam prompted, setting down her beer. I sank onto the couch, the story tumbling out, the coffee, the confessions, the fragile hope. Taylor hooped, pulling me into a hug that smelled of vanilla and victory. That's the plot twist we needed. But Sam was quieter, her smile tight as she glanced at Taylor. Later, as we cleaned up, she pulled me aside. Proud of you. But, Taylor and I, it's complicated. The admission hung, her vulnerability a mirror to my own, and I hugged her fierce. Then uncomplicated. We're all just figuring it out. The dinner with Jordan was at a hole-in-the-wall Italian in Carroll Gardens, candlelight flickering over checkered tables, the air rich with garlic and possibility. He showed up with a bottle of that cheap Chianti we'd discovered on a whim, label peeling like old promises. We ate. Pasta twirled on forks, stories traded like currency. He spoke of his new job at a nonprofit advocating for queer youth, the irony not lost, fighting the battles he'd once fled. It's humbling, he said, eyes meeting mine. Makes me see how I shortchanged us. I shared sketches from the zine, panels of fractured hearts mending, and his praise felt like sunlight after storm. But tension simmered beneath. Midway through, his phone buzzed. A work text, he said, but the flicker of unease reminded me of old patterns. I pushed it down, focusing on the now, his laugh at my botched pronunciation of tiramisu, the way his knee pressed mine under the table. Walking home, hands brushing then linking, the city felt alive with us. At my door, Sam's door, he paused, forehead to mine. No more half measures? I whispered. None, he vowed, and the kiss was soft, reaffirming, a seal on unfinished business. The high carried into the next week, messages now open, laced with plans, a gallery opening, a weekend in the Catskills. Sam and Taylor's spark ignited too, tentative dates amid comedy gigs and bar shifts, their laughter a soundtrack to my mending. But cracks appeared subtly. Jordan canceled our hike, citing family stuff, his brother visiting from Boston, the one who'd once cornered him at Christmas about fixing his confusion. I brushed it off, but doubt whispered. Then, at the zine launch party in a loft in Soho, surrounded by ink-stained artists and rainbow pins, I overheard Taylor on the phone, voice low. Yeah, Sam's great, but the exes, the drama. It's a lot. My stomach twisted, not jealousy, but recognition of the web we wove, loves tangled with histories. That night, buzzed on cheap punch, I confronted Sam in the kitchen, amid stacks of fresh prints. You and Taylor real? She sighed, leaning against the counter, vulnerability cracking her armor. Trying. She's scared of the intensity, says it reminds her of past hurts. And me? My family's ghosts still call, quoting scripture. We talked then, deep into the witching hour, about the prejudices we carried like heirlooms, the societal sneers, the internalized doubts that turned allies into adversaries. Love's not linear, she said finally, clinking her glass to mine. But it's worth the detours. Jordan's next message came at dawn. Brother left. Said some shit about traditional values. Wish you were here to call him out. I replied with a voice note, my voice steady. Next time, I will. Team us. But the unease lingered, a shadow in the light. When we met for the gallery, abstract pieces on identity, walls dripping color like emotions unbound. He seemed distant, eyes darting. Over wine, it spilled. His brother's visit had unearthed old wounds, slurs tossed like grenades, reigniting fears of rejection. I froze again, he admitted, voice small. Afraid it'd touch you. The conflict crested there, in the hush of the exhibit hall, my hand on his arm. It already does. But we face it together, or not at all. The argument that followed wasn't screams, but quiet thunder, words traded in the cab ride home, accusations of regression, defenses of growth. He dropped me off with a clipped goodbye, the door slamming like finality. Alone in the apartment, Sam and Taylor out on their latest not-a-date. I paced, phone in hand. Messages piled, his apologies, my retorts, a digital battlefield. Then, silence. Hours stretched, the city mocking with its ceaseless pulse. Desperate, I called Taylor, voice breaking. Help. I think I pushed too hard. She arrived with Sam in tow, takeout in bags, faces etched with concern. Over low mane and lamplight, they dissected it. The cycle of misunderstanding, the prejudice that poisoned even our safe spaces. Taylor's insight cut deepest. You're both survivors. Give grace, but set boundaries. Dawn brought clarity. I showed up at Jordan's door, coffee in hand, no script. He opened in sweats, eyes red-rimmed, and pulled me inside without a word. We talked on the floor, backs to the couch, truths bared. His commitment to therapy for the shame, my promise to voice fears sooner. The reconciliation was raw, tears mingling with laughter, a phoenix from ashes. No more hiding, he said, and I believed him, the light filtering through blinds a testament. As summer swelled, our circle tightened. Sam and Taylor went official at a barbecue in McCarran Park, announcing with a kiss that drew cheers and a few raised eyebrows from straight passers-by. The world's casual bias a reminder. Jordan met them fully then, over grilled corn and games of spikeball, his ease with Taylor's jokes and Sam's protectiveness sealing bonds. My family called, tentative invites to a reunion, and with Jordan's hand in mine over speakerphone, I said yes. Boundaries drawn, love unapologetic. But the climax brewed in autumn's chill. Jordan's nonprofit hosted a gala, black tie affair in a midtown ballroom, spotlight on queer trailblazers. I went as his +1, suit sharp, nerves electric. Midway, his boss approached, the performative ally with a smile too wide. Jordan's told me all about you, he said, hand extended, but the grip lingered, eyes appraising. Later, whispers reached me, colleagues gossiping about the boyfriend, laced with good for optics. Jordan overheard, face paling, and in a coat room alcove, The dam broke. I can't do this, he hissed, panic flaring. The stares, the judgments, it's suffocating. The fight erupted there, amid first stoles and hushed voices. My accusation of retreat, his fear of sabotage. You're choosing them over us, I shouted, drawing stairs. He stormed out, leaving me amid the glitter, heart shattering anew. Sam and Taylor found me later, ferrying me to a dive for shots and solace. This is the test, Taylor said, fierce. Prejudice wins if you let it. Sam nodded, her own budding love with Taylor a beacon. Go after him, not to fix, but to fight beside. I did, tracking him to the Brooklyn Bridge at midnight, winds whipping the East River below. He stood at the railing, silhouette stark against city lights, phone in hand, drafts of unsent messages glowing. I almost blocked you again, he confessed as I approached, voice raw. But deleting felt like erasing us. The surprise hit then, his phone screen, open to emails from a lawyer, divorcing his internalized doubts, filing for full visibility at work, a bold step spurred by our last clash. You're right. No more half. But I need you to meet me there. Tears came, the bridge a witness to our vow renewed. We walked home arm in arm, the path lit by understanding. Months later, at Sam's wedding to Taylor, a backyard affair in Ohio, reclaimed from family ghosts, Jordan and I stood as witnesses, rings exchanged under a chuppah of wildflowers. My dad, there with Mom, clapped haltingly, his nod a quiet evolution. Prejudices lingered, shadows in the margins, but our love, forged in conflict and surprise, stood firm. In the quiet after, as fireworks bloomed over the Hudson from our new shared apartment, walls bare, ready for murals, Jordan's hand found mine. Every night, he murmured, echoing those messages, I'm glad I dared. And in that, the drama resolved not in perfection, but in persistence, the heart's defiant beat against the world's noise.